When large jobs require moving massive amounts of snow, get the work done quickly and efficiently with the Western Pile Driver and all-new Pile Driver XL pusher plows, both featuring Trace Edge technology. These pushers scrape down to the pavement with an advanced cutting-edge system that has independent 2-foot sections that move vertically, oscillate, and trip. Get more jobs done faster with the Western Pile Driver lineup of pusher plows.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. You know there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey with your host, Dave Westcott. The Entrepreneurial Journey is a weekly podcast that streams live every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Pacific on Dave's YouTube channel and LinkedIn profile. Now here's Dave with this week's episode.
Good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott, and I have with me this morning special guest Blair Bryant Nichols, owner of BBN Creative Management. Blair, good morning.
Good morning, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm glad you're here. Where are you hailing from?
I'm based in Southern California, so I split my time between West Hollywood and right now I'm up at Lake Arrowhead, a couple hours, like 90 miles outside the city. So it's a nice little mountain lake getaway where we have a home, and I like to spend as much time here as I can.
Awesome. I love it. So I'm just looking at some notes on your bio, and you have a Shepherd mix rescue dog named Aspen.
I do, and we actually have a second Shepherd mix rescue dog named Buttercup now. So we've got like a very dark brown, beautiful dog, and another in like a very golden one. But they were banished from the office for this moment right now.
That's something you got to do. So I'm a dog lover. I don't have any rescues today because I've got little kids, and sometimes with a rescue, you never know exactly what's going to happen with the temperament. But I had rescued a Doberman maybe 25 years ago now, and then a couple of Cocker Spaniels before that, and then a Lab before that one. So I'm a big believer in the rescue because I think it's so good to save these dogs. Is that something that you kind of do on purpose, or is that just something that you fell into?
Yeah, I've been passionate about it for a long time. I think growing up we had a rescue dog, but then we, got another, dog from like a farm nearby. And I just, throughout my life, I've just been passionate more about, animal rescue, and especially, for dogs. And I had pugs before this, as an adult, and then got a bigger dog. And now, we got the second dog because we want her to have someone to play with. And yeah, it's hard. There's a lot of dogs out there that need homes and deserve a chance, and they end up being great most of the time. You just got to be a little bit patient.
The Shepherds are very protective.
Oh yeah, like they're because their pit bulls were actually called nanny dogs, and Shepherds, we all know, are working dogs and are very intelligent, can be very highly trained, and they can be used for a lot of different things. But Staffordshire Terriers, or what we know as pit bulls, were actually nanny dogs because they're really good with babies and kids, and they're very protective, and they're very like intuitive and whatnot. So, and they're very affectionate. So the mix is nice. We have up here in the mountains. It's why we wanted to be here, to give space for Aspen to run around, and now Buttercup, and she gets to be the guard dog and keep all the squirrels and dangerous birds away from us, the biggest threats we've faced so far. Although we do see coyotes up here, so I think she'd go on an attack if she needed to.
That's good. That's good. So that's good that they have that little fight in them. So this rescue dog it's part pit bull and part Shepherd. Is that right?
Yeah, both our girls are majority like Shepherd pit mix, and then they've got some other things mixed in as well.
Wow, that's cool. Does that make them a little shorter?
Yeah, they're both about like 50 to 60 pounds. Like they're more like the kind of the size, I guess, of a pit bull. And then Aspen just has like the head shape of a shepherd, and she has short hair.
Oh.
They're getting real. They're getting featured. They have their own Instagram, so you can check out Aspen and Buttercup on Instagram too. They're
All right, Aspen and Butter on Buttercup. I'm gonna do it.
Today.
That's cool. I'm gonna check that out. Well, I love dogs, so have to just jump in and talk about dogs when I see it come up.
Yeah.
So you're the owner of BBN Creative Management, and basically for diverse and mission-driven talent, that's basically what you're putting together. You're a seasoned expert in building strategic speaking platforms for speakers and business leaders. So really, what I hear is you're helping people develop, work, strategize what it takes to be a public speaker. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big piece of it. I think a lot of people, want to get out there and be a speaker, whether they think that that's the one activity that they want to be doing, whether they've retired from the corporate world or sold a company or decided to step away and want to do something more entrepreneurial. Whatever the case may be, there's a lot of different motivations for people who want to do it. And on the flip side, I think there's a lot of people who might be afraid to do it and might not really, necessarily want to do it, but actually could really benefit from getting out there and speaking. And it doesn't have to be in a big theater in front of thousands of people. If it's the right audience for your business, if it's the right, people that are going to actually help you achieve goals or move your business objectives forward, then that's where I take a more strategic approach to speaking. I hear a lot of people say, well, I just love speaking and I just want to do that as much as possible. And I think it can be really glamorous at first to be paid, 10 grand, 5 grand to get up and speak for an hour, but there's a lot more work that goes into it than that hour on stage. And honestly, the travel is the biggest component of it. And over the years, all but a few hyper adrenaline driven, types of speakers who continue to want to do 100+ dates a year. More people are like your producer's father, who would do 15 to 20 a year and figure out how to make that optimize and maximize. Most of the time, people don't realize that they don't want to be on the road all the time, away from home, away from their kids, away from their other life. They just get caught up in kind of the fun of it. And so I help them kind of zoom out and say, okay, great. Yeah, we're going to build your platform. We're going to lean into what's unique about you, what's special about you to generate more speaking opportunities. But, seeing that in 2008, when I was just getting started in my career, the industry went down the tube for a couple of years and rose again. And then 2020, we had a pretty significant disruption. Some of you may recall. I just really try to steer people away from the idea that they can survive and just do keynote speaking or just make money from speaking and not really try to build a business around it, to not be able to offer additional products or services. It's just not sustainable, and it's certainly not scalable. So a lot of them chase this dream of just getting booked as much as possible, flying around, doing the thing, and forget that can go away. Like, there is trends in this industry. There are fads. People that are popular 1 year or 2 years will fall off because the agents and other people want to book new speakers, or there's always the hot new thing or the new best-selling book or whatever that case may be. There's a lot of competition. So you have to think strategically about how you're building this out, whether it's the thing you want to be doing and you're already doing it, or you're like, hey, I've got this business and I just know that I shouldn't be the one in the weeds doing all the operations, when, like, as a CEO, as a founder, as a whatever you are, you're going to be so much more valuable if you're out there being able to spread your message to your target audience and turn that into more than just more speaking opportunities. But, keep building that email list, keep building that base, at least, if nothing else, so that when you launch a course or you host your own workshops or you're actively looking for clients for your business, you're doing something more proactive with your speaking than simply getting up in front of the room and hoping that people will, give you their business card afterwards or find you on LinkedIn or whatever. So I just threw a lot out there. It's just how I think about it and where, people come to me. But yeah, let me pause.
That was awesome. I mean, that was a lot of really great information. I love that what you talked about was the downturns, because I think the downturns make such an impact. And, when you're coaching somebody, when you're working with somebody, and they have that drive to want to be a speaker, and that's what they want, you're saying, hey, slow down a little bit, and let's think about some of these other aspects that are going to continue to produce income if we have a pandemic, if we have an economic downturn, if you're not as popular as you once were, so on and so forth. What are some of those things that they should be doing, or that you're coaching them to do outside of the speaking?
Yeah, well, great question, and thank you. A lot of times I think the speakers are not preparing for a rainy day. I actually just posted something on my Instagram last week that was like, or a couple weeks ago, that's like, it's okay that it's July, we're recording this in July, that you're slower now, that you're not getting tons of requests, that you're not out on the road. Like, this should be an expectation that in the summer things slow down, and you too need to take this time to rest, recharge, strategize, think about it. I think a lot of them are driven by the adrenaline that comes from receiving requests, and they get kind of addicted to that dopamine that comes from new requests. And to be honest, like, a lot of that is not always within your control. I mean, you as a speaker need to be generating demand and going out proactively to seek opportunities if you're not getting a ton of demand. But even when you are, there's sometimes it's hard to tell if that's going to continue. So I just was speaking to a speaker recently, and they're kind of freaked out. They'd had like 6 months of steady stream of leads and new gigs, and then things kind of quieted down for the summer. And because people are now also booking speaking engagements, like, I just closed a deal for an event that's next week. Like, people are not always booking their speakers 6 months out, 9 months out. When I started, it was even as much as like a year or 18 months out. No, right. Now with all this uncertainty, all this, the Amazon effect of we can get anything overnight, people wait longer and longer even to book speakers. So you can't even tell if you're going to have a great fall or a quiet fall at this point. So there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of things in the market, especially for speaking, that you can't control. So you need to be thinking about how you are leveraging those opportunities every time you get out there for what you're talking about, other opportunities for revenue. If nothing else, every time you're on stage, having your slides or a free resource or something that they can immediately download, give you their email address so that you are always building your email list. A lot of people rely on social media. The algorithm is not always your friend, and we know that these platforms can change their model and can go away overnight if something else happens. Your email list is what you can control. It's how you can reach people directly, and you can also use it as an asset. Your email, I'll say that again, your email list is an asset. If you want to get a book published, if you want to get more attention, just having a strong email list is going to help you. And when you're ready to launch that course or that other thing, this is who you're going to launch it to. So if you wait to build that up after you've already been out speaking or already doing these other things, then it's going to be a lot harder. So just even building that email list, and then thinking about, okay, well then what do you want to spend your time doing? I think speaking can provide B2B and B2C opportunities, but based on your message, based on your target audience and what your products and services are, you might lean one way or another. It might not be an even 50-50. So figuring out then how are you getting people as customers, and what are you offering them? What are you able to just give to consumers? And then what are the sort of things that you might want to do with companies? Some of my clients and a lot of the speakers I've worked with don't really do any B2C things. They're not hosting workshops. They're not doing digital courses. They're doing corporate consulting and advising and doing things behind the scenes at a pretty high level ticket price. But again, it kind of comes down to who you are and what you want to be doing, and then just seeing speaking as a vehicle to open doors for that, more opportunities for that, because you're being intentional about who you want to speak to, and hopefully then you're putting these mechanisms in place so that you can follow up afterwards and you can continue to use it as just a funnel filler even.
Yeah, that's cool. It makes me think, like, there's a lot of great information there. What is a good mix of speaking, corporate consulting, B2B, private coaching? Like like what do you want to see? Like if I'm, and to give it in words, is like, is it, should 30% of my business be speaking, 20% coaching, 10% book, or is there a magic number there, or is it just, dependent on each individual?
I mean, it's definitely dependent on the individual, but I love this question because it's exactly where I've started to talk about more about flipping that 80-20. I really think 20% of your revenue should be speaking. If it's something that's, filling the funnel, it should lead to either higher ticket things or volume of sales that should result in a greater amount of revenue. Think about it this way. Like if you wanted to scale your business, then you as an individual might be able to make a lot of money from speaking, but that doesn't mean you'd be able to support a whole team based on the revenue from that speaking alone. If you're scaling into projects that require facilitators or other consultants or other things, then that money is going to come from the contracts that are generated from the speaking. So I see a lot of speakers, are probably more in that 80-20, and that like most of their money comes from speaking, and they've been sold a couple courses. They'll do something that's like speaking, and then they'll call it something else. But that's where I feel like there's so much risk, right? I advocate for a diverse portfolio. I don't break it down into 10% coaching and X amount that. We could do that with clients. I mean, if our clients wanted to get that specific, it's a great approach. But just in general, I talk about the big bucket should be coming more from everything else, whether it's passive or it's just, higher ticket, higher return. And the speaking should be, maybe a fifth of it. That just helps, even cover your own like expenses, costs, salary, whatever that might look like. And that's just kind of how I saw it function in other places. But I think if you continue to scale, that number would continue to shrink. The amount of revenue coming from speaking should continue to shrink if you're actually scaling products and services beyond your own time.
That's awesome. I like that. I like how you're breaking that up, and you're really helping them to be, good business owners. Maybe this is the wrong analogy, but this is kind of what it makes me think of. Like, hey, I'm 19 years old. I just signed a $20 million contract for the NBA, and here we go. And all of a sudden, 5 years in, I got a knee injury, and I spent all my money, and I don't have any skills.
Right.
And I needed that coaching. I needed someone to say, hey man, listen, I know that speaking's the big deal right now. I know that this is your catalyst, but why don't you think about, launching some online courses? Why don't you think about opening up a coaching program and work to diversify your income so that you can be sustainable for many years to come, where you don't kind of flash out or burn out. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're just seeing the power of a platform. Like a lot of people, they find themselves, whether, they are the center of a story that then propels them into the public eye, or they, become famous or whatever in some respect, like a new best-selling author. And now, to your point, they're like, great, I can just sell books and be on the road speaking, or, an athlete can have a pretty short career. But I think the analogy is right, that if they're not prepared, and if they're not really taking advantage of what that time right now is giving them. I'll give you an example. I launched a pretty well-known keynote speaker now who had a movie based on their life. And so that was the platform to get them out there. And it was pretty, like, that took time because it wasn't like the #1 movie of the year, but it was Oscar nominated. It definitely generated attention. And the more that people saw the movie, of course, knowing that would drive more attention for this speaker. But, even a year in, I was thinking, wow, we're leaving so much money on the table because we're not, turning this into anything else. And we're not really building anything else outside of it. I think they do a podcast now, and that's pretty much it. They do speaking and podcasts because they were just resistant to the idea of trying to scale, or that it wouldn't just be the gift that keeps on giving. And I try to explain, like sometimes this is the type of thing, like Aaron Brockovich, or there's other movies where the person who's the real person of the movie becomes a famous speaker for that reason, pretty much. Like it's Sully, like people who are just famous, like Sully Sullenberger was famous because of what he did, but like that, otherwise most people don't have one moment in their career propel them to a multi-million-dollar speaking career, like
Right.
these are just examples. But if you want to sustain, to your point, you got to capture that platform while you have it, while you have fame or fans. And like I'm talking about even just building an email list. So if you do have a career altering injury, now you have a base of people to go out to with your products. And I think this is why you see more and more celebrities or so many crossover entrepreneurs, because there's just so many opportunities to leverage simply their name, their fame, their everything that has always been the case, but is now just hype on steroids with social media. That, like, you have to think like that too. You don't have to have a fragrance brand and a soda endorsement, but you should have other things that align with, your message, your speaking, your business, and be thoughtful about money coming from multiple places.
You are a smart guy. I mean, I'm having trouble even doing the podcast show because I'm thinking about what I can do in my own career versus I should be asking questions, and my mind's thinking, oh, I could do this and I could do that and I could do this. And I'm like, okay, all right, get focused here. But, I really enjoy what you have to say. I mean, you really articulate it well. I mean, I'm so impressed. One of the things I've noticed is that, I've done, maybe 10 or 15 of these speaking events. And I like to think I do well in a speaking event. But, here's the thing that happens to me at a speaking event is I'll get up there and I'll know that I'll have this event coming up for 6 months. I think about it every day. I mean, every day that goes by, I've got a knot in my stomach, and then come to the day of the event, I hate it. I got to make sure I take a glass of water up there with me so I can keep talking when my mouth goes dry on me or something like that. I mean, how do you help people overcome that stage fright, and how do you help them get their voice out there and be heard and deliver a message that's, compelling, that's, exciting, that's, that really captures the audience and keeps them relevant? How do you do that?
Yeah, well, another great question. And, I don't want to negate the fact that the people who do this really well really do practice a lot and have had years to hone their message, and like comedians to figure out what stories resonate and how to tweak them or the wording. And so even if you don't have multiple stages or a local, comedy club to go to try out your keynote, practicing it yourself, getting just comfortable with the speaking. You don't want to be so over rehearsed that it feels that way or it feels scripted or whatnot. But I do think it helps. It like athletes, it sinks in, it becomes part of a flow state. If you've done it enough, it's muscle memory. I think a lot of people are even afraid to practice. So if you've got something coming up like that, like the best thing you can do is just prepare. But what I like to tell speakers, whether I'm on site or just, when they have this questions in particular, I like to remind them that you're there to give a gift. This is not the Olympics. This is not, a recital or even a performance necessarily. It is somewhat of a performance, but most of the time these people are there for positive impact, for motivation, for inspiration, and you're giving them the gift of your knowledge, your, everything that you have to offer. And if that's your intention, and if that's how you start to see it, and it's less of like, I'm going out there to be critiqued or, anything else, I think that kind of helps or hopefully helps people in the long run, kind of shift their mindset to what this really is. And again, like, that's why I love this industry, because most of it is very positive.
So the preparation thing makes me think of something, and this, I'm going to give you a political example, but I'm not going to go political.
Okay.
So when I think of what you said, like preparation and practice, like I think of Barack Obama, President Obama. Like when he speaks, it's like, it's very beautiful. It's very poetic. It's very just like, wow. I mean, he's very captivating, very, very well articulated, like just I would say in my mind, a great speaker. And then if I would compare that to like a Donald Trump, like, and I'm not saying anything political about him either way, but at the end of the day, like very erratic, very unprepared, very just like what's going to happen, right?
Contemporaneous,
and I feel like when when I'm in speaking mode, like I really want that captivating. I really want that smooth. I really want that preparation. I don't know if that analogy fits or not, but is that what we're going for when we're speaking to our clients? We really want them captivated. We want that I don't know if it's right or wrong, but that Barack Obama type of just preparation and peace. Is that a good analogy, or am I off?
Knowing a bit about how President Obama would prepare for his talks, considering his speechwriters are famous podcasters and, have the opportunity to share anecdotes all the time about working with him, he was very detailed in the draft versions of the speech. Even though he gets teleprompters and all of that, he was practicing and revising and giving notes. Like, I don't think that President Trump is as involved or as interested in preparing lengthy talks or very precise wording, but you don't have to be Obama or have his style to be authentic. But if you want people to receive your message and connect with you and then bring them on this journey with you, then yeah, you have to be more thoughtful with the stories you tell, because really it's all about starting with a story and connecting with the audience that way. You don't come out there and say, hey, I'm so-and-so and I went to Harvard and I did this and this and now I'm going to talk about this. No, like that person's not getting tens of thousands of dollars to do that. Like the great speakers, they're telling a story and then they create an emotional connection with the audience, because that's what opens us up to now allow you to share your knowledge with us, and to then receive that. So the best speakers are really packaging, kind of bookending their talks with stories that leave a more emotional impression and connection, because that's what people care about. And I think that's something Obama did really well, was not just beautiful floral language and very intentional word choices, but he would insert his, emotional stuff in it. And you hear politicians who are good do this all the time. Good politicians, when they get a question and anyone can do this, good CEOs should do this and talk about their workers, but they get a question at a debate or a town hall or whatever, and they tell a story. Well, I met this Sandra yesterday and she works at the diner and she told me about how she can't feed her children because XYZ. The good politicians do that, and they do it authentically, and they actually remember these people's names and they remember their stories and they bring those up. And you'll see those that aren't as connected or as authentic don't really do that. So I think it's a good example. It's a good analogy. And it's something that you can take into your work as a speaker, because it's not just about the stories you tell. Even better speakers do a lot of time talking to people in advance of their keynotes, interviewing a few people at the organization, and especially talking to leaders. They weave, like maybe a funny anecdote or something that shows this audience that you actually know who they are. You even have the inside jokes, the language. You may even be able to make it personal based on that. I've seen some speakers who are just brilliant at kind of weaving in this a story they heard at breakfast that morning and just like wowing the audience because they were able to do that. So these are just different things that, I think start to elevate your game. It's where I help speakers think how they can really go beyond what they've been doing. And a lot of that does come from really good preparation, not just on what you're going to say, but knowing who you're saying it to. And being able to make sure you're connecting the dots to that particular audience. Because I've also seen speakers fall on their face, get up there and give their same talk. And they talk about, when you go to the office and this and that. And this audience was all people who worked at home. That was, the entire point of the event was these people all work for a company where they're not all in a central office. So even though their message may have applied to like 90 or 80% of other types of workers, because he didn't really connect like his even verbiage to their particular profession, it was a disconnect. So I think a lot of that comes from that preparation, that curiosity, and like kind of understanding when you walk out on that stage who you are talking to and how you can really get their attention.
I love that. The practice is so important. I'm training for this Ironman event. I'm
Awesome.
going to do it, 2.5 miles swim, 112-mile bike, 26-mile run.
It's the swim. I don't know about the swim.
The swim is so hard.
Yeah.
Yesterday my coach, he sent me a text and he said, okay, today is 200 laps in the pool. I was immediately depressed all day. All day. I was immediately like, the only thing I could think about was 200 laps in the pool. But it's those reps, right? Like, I did it and I procrastinated. I didn't even start till like 8 o'clock last night. I mean, I was to the point I was like, well, maybe I should just skip. But it's that practice. It's getting those reps in, right? Like, I did it. I got it done. I didn't want to. I have a goal. I want to achieve the goal. It's the same in speaking. It's getting out there and getting in front of the people. It's talking. It's practice, like you've said. Share with your neighbor. Share with your spouse. Share with whomever. What in your mind does that first speaking event look like? Is that, what am I going for? What should it be? How is there any time of length or anything? But that first event, like if you can get that first base hit under your belt, what does that look like in your mind?
Yeah, I think it can look like a lot of things. And I think you have to be open and humble to any opportunity to give it a shot. I think on one hand, there's the volunteer aspect, like putting your own name forward, whether it's in your company or at work, and just trying to do to say, hey, I'd like to lead a session, or I'd like to do a workshop or a talk on this, or volunteering, with organizations you have a relationship with, your school, your kids' school, your church, whatever organizations that it might just be valuable. Hey, I know you guys have lunch speakers every month. Like, could I be one of those? Like, just working your network until you have more, what I'll call assets to share. Like, these are my speaking topics. Here's where I've spoken. Here's video of me speaking. That does take some time to build up. And what is the right message to get out there? So I think trial and error is important. And just, again, thinking about where could you give your gifts? Or, hey, I really think that I want to kind of go out on my own, and I'm really good at marketing. I think I do like freelance marketing. So maybe I should start to think about like a talk I could give at my, local co-working space for the entrepreneurs there, and just share some like tips on digital marketing. And I'm going to, reach out to the different co-working spaces and see if that would be valuable. And I'm just going to do that pro bono and see if then anyone like wants my advice, and how you could get your first client this way. Like, there's a lot of different ways where it comes, where your first talk can just be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be super strategic. But I think if you're trying to be strategic, like, these are the things I would think about, and how I would approach just like getting in front of like communities that their purpose is to provide information and education. Like, you're not asking them to reinvent the wheel for what their mission is, or doing something that they don't normally do, but also understanding that like they're not going to pay you. This is a pro bono thing, and hopefully it's going to lead to more. But I always say speaking begets more speaking. You're not going to get hired as a speaker if no one's ever seen you speak.
Right.
It's just, I mean, it does, I guess it happens, I read your book, or I did this or that. But most of the time, like, you've probably already done it by the time you start getting anyone to ask you to do it.
I love the idea of giving a gift, like going into the event, with this idea that I'm going to leave a part of my soul, a part of myself. Because I like what you said too about the emotion, where it's like, man, that emotional connection. I mean, when someone really leaves a part of their soul on the stage, you're just like, oh, dude, that was life changing, right? So when you're working with somebody, how do you decide what that gift's going to be? Like, man, what should my gift be? Does my gift change? Does it, like, how do I work that in?
Yeah. I mean, when we're talking about actual quote unquote tangible gifts, like in the sense of, I'm going to give you this free resource, or this, normally valued at $100 resource for free digital download, something like that. I think there is some degree, it's about who your audience is. It's about what you're there to talk about, and it's about what you want them to do next. So you're not giving your whole I can't give you all of my knowledge in a 30-40 minute interview, and you can't give all of your knowledge in a 30-40 minute keynote. You're trying to get a big idea across. You're trying to like paint a picture of what is possible with these insights, with this, you know, kind of knowledge. And you're then going to provide a valuable tool to this audience, because they're not going to be able to grasp this in just 40 minutes. So you're going to giving them something simple that allows them to get value from it immediately. Here's 5 scripts you can use in your next outreach. Like, again, I'm just going very basic.
Yeah.
But like, here, great. Oh, wow. Like, and then now they're in your email list. And the next thing you know, you're saying, yeah, come join my course. If you want to like master your copywriting, come join this digital course, or buy this digital course, or come to this workshop. That's where things can ladder up. So it really comes from, what's your goal? What's the end game? This is all just part of a big iterative process of filling that funnel and trying to move customers either up the ladder to higher priced, higher ticket items, or to continue to develop relationships that will generate more speaking opportunities. And just in general, to keep building this list, as I've mentioned a few times now. So when you launch your book, when you are doing anything that you want to do that's going to help bring you to that next level, these are the people that you're going to be relying on, hopefully, to be your first pre-orders, etc. So what you give them is just has to be something valuable, and it has to create a connection that hopefully can continue, even if nothing else than just staying subscribed to your email list until the time is right.
I love, I love it. That I feel like I could just steal you away and talk to you all day. It's
I am available, you know.
There you go. That's the best part, man. I love it. I gotta know, like, all this knowledge, all this wisdom. I mean, look, I got so many notes on this page. I mean, it's just crazy. How did you get started in this? What led you down this journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think like a true millennial, it was more kind of chose me than I chose it. I was a literature major. I wanted to go, and I figured out pretty much halfway through college, I wanted to go work in publishing in New York, even though I hadn't really known anything about the industry. So I went to this thing called the Columbia Publishing course. It was like, they take 100 undergrads who just graduated. It's like summer boot camp for book nerds. We did like 3 weeks about books. And because this was 2007, we did 3 weeks about magazines. It was just about transitioning to digital, and a lot of magazines were like rapidly going out of business. So it was kind of an interesting time. And obviously we know this was right before the recession, so danger looming all around. But I kind of fell into it. My first job was at the HarperCollins Speakers Bureau. I thought I was going to pursue being a publicist or something like that. I had already kind of ruled out a couple things I wasn't as interested in. And my mentor at the Columbia Publishing course hired me as his assistant. So I started out at the HarperCollins Speakers Bureau, which was the first publishing house to have an in-house Speakers Bureau. They'd been around, Speakers Bureau's independent, had been around for a while. And so it was just kind of a new thing that the publishers could offer to their authors, also generate some more money, but also, you know, use it as an intentional way to sell more books. So that's kind of where I got my start, and then moved over to an agency a couple years later, and moved out to LA a few years later. From there, I've been now on the West Coast for 12 years and been on just different sides. So I worked in-house for Keith Ferrazzi, who's a, you know, popular author and speaker. And then I went to an agency. I got my MBA at UCLA. So I don't know, I kind of just kept coming back to the idea of management, though, ever since I was in New York early on, that I didn't like being an agent with hundreds of clients, or being responsible for 2 major publishing houses' entire roster of authors. I liked to be able to pick who I wanted to work with, and I wanted to do more for them than just brokering talks. And that's why I'm a manager. You know, I know people get weird about the distinctions between agents and managers, but in my mind, I'm helping people with their entire kind of business portfolio, creative portfolio. Wow. It's not just about being the broker for their speaking requests or trying to get them just more speaking. It's what I'm talking about. It's this, what is the strategy for more? What is the best place for you to be speaking to drive this new course sale that we're promoting, or this other thing that we're doing? You know, I love the bigger picture stuff. So, you know, 5 years ago, I got my like LLC really up and running. And so now I've it's a long-term journey. It was 5 years at least out of business school before I was really feeling like I'm like independently working on my own. But that's what it is. Like for speakers too, this is a long-term journey. This is not just something that happens overnight most of the time. And, I just try to help people on like how my path just kind of kept bringing me back to it. I feel like now I've seen a lot of different options, a lot of different business models. During the pandemic, I worked for a company that was very much focused on, digital stages and podcasts and just helping early stage entrepreneurs and small business owners take those first steps, and people who won't ever probably get paid for a speech, but are using speaking strategically, like me, on a podcast to just get their message out there and get in front of an audience that can become customers and clients and whatnot. So yeah, I just have kind of a unique, I guess, pedigree in that I've been around long enough to see different sides of it. A lot of people go to work for a bureau and never leave. It can be a very lucrative, fun business to be in. But I was never satisfied with just being the guy that calls the pharmaceutical people or the finance people every year to say, who are we booking? And what, it's, again, that's a broker's job. I like the bigger strategy. I liked the talent development. I like to build things, and talent in every single speaker is pretty much a company unto themselves. And I'm just more excited by the ones who look to scale beyond, them and an assistant, or them and their team. If you want to grow a company, you don't just grow at the admin level. You hire, a COO or a CMO. And that's why I function more as like an executive partner COO to these folks. And as the alternative is, the alternative is not hiring an EA, that's a different kind of relationship. So I think that's one of the things that I try to dispel though on, really what the work is that we do.
I love it. Okay. I've got 4 questions. They're all easy. If somebody wants to work with you today and they're listening to the show, how do they get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to connect?
Sure. It's super easy. You can go to my website, bbncreativemanagement.com. There's a link there to sign up for a free 30-minute call. I'd love to meet new people, even if you're just taking the first steps and you just want to pick my brain or whatever. Hopefully can answer questions and help you figure out what your next best step is. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Instagram. It's Blair Bryant Nichols. It's BBN Creative Management and all the places. So feel free to reach out, however is easiest for you. But that link is available on my website and on my Instagram, so that you can go ahead and get on my calendar and hopefully we can chat.
Awesome. Listen, if you're thinking about making this step, this is the guy to talk to. I mean, seriously, it's been awesome. Blair Bryant Nichols, search him out. He answered my second question, which was, what are your socials? So now we know that. We've got you on Instagram and we've got you on LinkedIn. So 2 great places to be. So hit him up there, follow him, like his stuff, share his stuff, get involved with that. Now I've got my 2 serious questions that I like to just kind of end the show with. What's one tip that you would give any entrepreneur or anybody who's thinking about getting into the speaking business? What's the tip that you would give them?
I would just tell them that I always like to say speaking begets more speaking, but if you're an entrepreneur, business owner, and your strategy so far has been social media, has been going to conferences and shaking hands, or even being a vendor, an exhibitor at a conference, just think about how much more powerful it would be to be a speaker at that event. How many more people you can reach with your message when you're the authority on stage and not the guy shaking hands and handing out business cards. It really accelerates a lot of what you can do. And I know every business is different, but there's an event for every business. There's an audience for you. There's a way that you can now leverage this a lot better than what you might have been already doing. And you don't really have to invest a whole lot to make that happen.
That's a fantastic tip. I love that. Instead of going in as a vendor who's paying 10 grand, go in as a speaker who's getting paid 10 grand, and you'll get more authority, more interest. Yeah, I love that. That's a fantastic
do it for free.
tip.
Or
do it for free. That's right.
Start it, just get on stage, however you can do it and negotiate it. And to be honest, some people do pay for that, but that's a much better return in my eyes than a booth or your name on a step and repeat, your logo on a lanyard, like that authority, especially if you're more of a thought leader, service-based, individual, you're going to get a lot more out of a speaking opportunity than any of that other stuff.
All right. I love it. Final question I've got. You've got a whiteboard, a billboard. The whole world can see it. You can put a word, a slogan, a sentence, anything. What do you want to share with the world?
Oh man, I don't have a tagline perfectly, because I was going to say speaking begets more speaking, but that's not that interesting. I think I don't know if this is wholly original, but along the lines of the world needs to hear your story. It's everyone has their own story. That's what makes you unique. The imposter syndrome I see is not, I'm so dumb and like no one wants to hear from me. It's more though, no one wants to hear from you because everyone knows this stuff. But that's not true about most things. We just surround ourselves with people who speak the same language, and we're in industries where everyone might know the ins and outs of digital marketing or the things I've been talking about today. But I'm very acutely aware that people are very unfamiliar with this industry and everything else. So you have to be, not arrogant about, but open-minded enough to say, oh, I do have something to share, and I have my own story behind it. No one else is my story. A lot of people have expertise in what I do and can probably even give you better advice, in different areas. But I've got my point of view based on where I've been and what, my background is, and no one else has that. So I think the world needs everyone to just own their individuality and to understand that your story can have power to others, if nothing else, to maybe one other life. And then most speakers that are doing it for the right things are looking to make an impact, more than just grow a following.
That was amazing. I gotta end it there. I think that was fantastic. This has been the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every Tuesday. We are live. Check us out. Drop your comments into the comment box. Give us a like. Give us a share. And tell us how we're doing. Say hi. This has been awesome. Blair, thank you so much. I've been honored to hang out with you this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you, Dave.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations, so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. There's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.
Introducing the all-new Western Enforcer V-Plow. Engineered with all the features, efficiency, and performance of full-size Western V-Plows, built specifically for your half-ton truck. For more information, visit westernplows.com.